The Dyatlov Pass Mystery. Before the tragedy, the Dyatlov group, 9 experienced hikers led by Igor Dyatlov, were captured in photographs smiling, preparing their gear, and setting out on their journey into the Ural Mountains. Their route began in Sverdlovsk, crossing the frozen wilderness toward the remote Dyatlov Pass, deep in the Ural Mountains. The group included Igor Dyatlov, Zinaida Kolmogorova, Lyudmila Dubinina, Rustem Slobodin, Alexander Kolevatov, Yuri Krivonishenko, Yuri Doroshenko, Semyon Zolotaryov, and Nikolai Thibault Brignol, each with their own story, ambitions, and dreams. One of the most perplexing aspects of the Dyatlov Pass incident is the state of the campsite itself. Search teams noted that the tent had been slashed open from the inside, indicating that the group members were trying to get out in extreme haste. Why would experienced hikers, trained to endure extreme cold, flee into sub-zero temperatures with no shoes, coats, or basic protection? The hikers didn't attempt to use the front flap. Instead, they tore through the fabric. The pattern of escape suggested a panic so intense that rational decision-making collapsed. Yet the footprints leading from the tent were orderly, not chaotic, not suggestive of a stampede. This contradiction, frantic exit but calm departure, only deepens the mystery. Nearby, the remnants of a small campfire were found beneath a cedar tree. Next to it were the bodies of Krivonishenko and Doroshenko. Both were found without outer clothing, and one of the tree branches was broken nearly 5 meters high, suggesting that one of the men had climbed it, perhaps to look for the tent or escape something unseen. 3 of the group, Dyatlov, Kolmogorova, and Slobodin, were found between the cedar tree and the tent. It appeared they had tried to return. Their positioning told a tragic story of individuals pushing against the wind, the cold, and perhaps their own fear, only to collapse within reach of safety. Slobodin had a cracked skull, but it wasn't determined to be the cause of death. All 3 died of hypothermia. The condition of their bodies suggested that they had been exposed to the elements longer than the 2 near the fire, and their injuries were fewer. Kolmogorova had bruised knuckles, which some speculate was from fighting or defending herself, while Dyatlov's body showed signs of struggling. The 4 remaining hikers, Dubinina, Zolotaryov, Kolevatov, and Thibault Brignola, were not found until May 1959, 2 months after the first bodies. Their remains lay at the bottom of a ravine, covered in deep snow. These 4 sustained the most severe injuries, baffling investigators. Thibault Brignol's skull was crushed by immense force, yet there was no damage to the surrounding skin. Zolotaryov had multiple broken ribs and internal bleeding. Despite this, his face showed no bruises. Dubinina suffered from similar broken ribs, and her tongue, eyes, part of her lips, and facial tissue were missing, possibly post-mortem, but no animals were spotted in the area, and the cuts appeared almost surgical. Kolevatov had a broken nose and signs of exposure, but was less severely injured. What's astonishing is that none of these internal injuries were matched by external damage. Forensic experts described the trauma as similar to that caused by a high-speed car crash or shockwave, raising questions of explosive force, pressure, or other unknown phenomena. Another oddity from the autopsies was the detection of radiation on some victims' clothing. Krivonishenko and Zolotaryov's garments registered higher than normal levels of radioactive contamination. While not fatal, this discovery fueled speculation that the hikers encountered radioactive material, possibly from military testing, nuclear waste, or a failed secret experiment. The area around Dyatlov Pass was under strict Soviet control during the Cold War, and access was heavily regulated. In fact, the case files were marked top secret for years and were only partially declassified in the 1990s. Could the group have accidentally wandered into a restricted military zone? Were they victims of a cover-up? Some theories suggest that parachute mines or experimental weapons might have detonated near them. These weapons create concussive waves strong enough to cause internal trauma without leaving external marks, eerily similar to the injuries observed. In 2013, researcher Donny Aikar proposed that a rare meteorological phenomenon known as the Kármán vortex street might have caused infrasound, a low-frequency vibration below the range of human hearing, which can induce panic attacks, nausea, and feelings of dread in humans. According to this theory, the wind flowing over the pass created powerful infrasound vibrations that led the hikers to experience irrational fear. Believing they were in danger, they fled the tent. Once in the cold and dark, they were unable to recover. The infrasound theory is attractive because it explains the panic and flight from the tent without invoking external attackers or conspiracies. However, it still does not explain the severe physical injuries or the radiation. In several cold weather fatalities, victims are known to remove their clothing before dying, a phenomenon called paradoxical undressing. As hypothermia sets in, the body misinterprets signals and creates a sensation of burning heat, causing victims to shed garments in a final, fatal act of confusion. This could explain why some of the Dyatlov hikers were found partially undressed, but not all of them. Moreover, some of the victims wore each other's clothes, possibly scavenged from the bodies of those who died first, indicating a degree of rational decision-making inconsistent with complete hypothermic confusion. In 2021, the Russian government officially stated that the hikers died due to a natural force, reaffirming the slab avalanche theory. Proponents argue that the heavy snowfall on the slope could have loosened, pushing part of the snowpack onto the tent without burying it completely. The panic, cold, and subsequent injuries then followed as the group scattered in the night. However, critics highlight that no signs of an avalanche, such as snow patterns, debris fields, or significant tent displacement, were present. Moreover, experienced hikers like Dyatlov would not have pitched camp in a dangerous avalanche zone. Recent simulations using modern avalanche physics, as featured in National Geographic and Nature, suggest that under certain conditions, including compacted snow layers and a shallow angle, a small slab slide could cause localized pressure injuries. Still, this model remains contested. The bizarre nature of the Dyatlov Pass incident has made it a magnet for wild speculation. Some of the more colorful theories include Yeti or unknown creature attacks, based on diary entries mentioning snowmen. Some suggest an animal or cryptid encounter. Alien abduction. Unusual lights in the sky were reportedly seen by hikers in nearby areas, raising UFO theories. Supernatural interference. Given the name Mountain of the Dead, some believe indigenous Mansi legends about cursed terrain may hold relevance. These ideas are largely unsupported by evidence, but reflect the emotional and psychological impact of the mystery. Part of the ongoing confusion stems from the Soviet Union's tight control of information. Investigators were pressured to close the case quickly. Files were redacted, photos were missing, and some evidence was classified for decades. Eyewitnesses from nearby villages later claimed they saw orange orbs in the sky around the time of the hikers' deaths, possibly missile tests or flares. Yet these were dismissed or underreported. Even the release of declassified files in the 1990s and 2000s has not answered key questions, as some documents appear tampered with or incomplete. The Dyatlov Pass incident has become a lasting cultural phenomenon, inspiring documentaries, books, and films, including Dead Mountain, the Dyatlov Pass Incident, 2013, and countless online investigations. For many Russians, the case represents both a personal tragedy and a symbol of unresolved Cold War secrecy. In 2020, relatives of the victims petitioned for a new investigation, claiming that the official version still ignores key evidence. Independent researchers and forums continue to dig, analyze, and hypothesize, hoping to crack the code of what really happened that night. The Dyatlov Pass mystery defies simple explanation. The blend of bizarre injuries, unexplained environmental conditions, potential radiation exposure, and a backdrop of Cold War secrecy make it a case that continues to haunt minds across the world. As we've seen, every major theory, from avalanches to military tests to infrasound, answers part of the puzzle, but none explain everything. In the next part of this essay, we'll explore the deepest theories, revisit eyewitness reports, examine modern forensic analysis, and look at the family's search for truth over 60 years later. The Dyatlov mystery, much like the frozen Ural Mountains where it occurred, is as cold and unsettling today as it was in 1959.
The military testing hypothesis, an explosive possibility. Among the most compelling explanations is the theory that the group unknowingly wandered into a classified Soviet military testing zone. In the late 1950s, the Soviet Union was conducting top-secret weapons experiments in remote, sparsely inhabited areas like the Ural Mountains. This theory posits that the hikers may have been accidental witnesses to something they were never meant to see, a situation that could have warranted either forced evacuation, silencing, or tragic collateral damage. Supporting clues. Radioactive residue was found on the clothes of Krivonyshenko and Zolotaryov, raising the question of proximity to nuclear material or radioactive ordnance. Witnesses from nearby villages and expeditions claimed to see bright orange lights in the sky during the night of the incident, possibly flares, parachute mines, or test explosions. The secrecy surrounding the investigation and the classification of the case for decades suggest possible state interest in concealing facts. Parachute mines, experimental munitions tested by the Soviet military, could cause shockwave trauma consistent with the injuries observed. Severe internal damage with minimal external wounds. The disfigurement of some bodies, especially Dubinina's missing tongue and facial tissue, could result from blast waves or post-mortem animal activity, although the latter remains contested. Yet, no debris, blast craters, or weapons remnants were recovered. Either the military thoroughly cleaned the area, or the theory doesn't hold up. Still, in Cold War-era USSR, covert sanitization of evidence was standard procedure. The circumstantial signs remain strong, even if tangible proof is elusive. The infrasound-induced panic theory reignited in public discourse by author Donny Iker in his 2013 book, Dead Mountain. The infrasound theory presents a rare but plausible natural explanation. The shape of Kholat Syakhl, the mountain where the group camped, could have produced a Kármán vortex street under certain wind conditions. This aerodynamic phenomenon emits low-frequency vibrations, infrasound, capable of influencing human psychology. Symptoms of infrasound exposure include heightened anxiety, fear or panic, confusion or disorientation. Hallucinations. The hikers, gripped by irrational terror, might have cut their way out of the tent and fled into the darkness in a frenzied attempt to escape an invisible threat. Once the infrasound subsided, some tried to return to the tent but succumbed to the elements. While this theory is elegant and rooted in physics, it does not explain the massive internal injuries, radiation traces, or missing body parts. Still, it fits neatly with the panic behavior, orderly footprints, and absence of a known external force. The Mansi tribe conflict theory. At the beginning of the investigation, Soviet authorities briefly considered the possibility that the hikers had been killed by members of the Mansi tribe, the indigenous people who inhabited the surrounding region. The campsite was near a Mansi sacred site, leading to theories that the group may have violated Holy Land and triggered a retaliatory attack. Why this theory was dismissed? No Mansi weapons or tools were found near the bodies. Autopsies revealed no defensive wounds that would suggest a hand-to-hand struggle. The Mansi people were known for being peaceful and cooperative, and many members aided in the search. The tracks in the snow belonged exclusively to the hikers. There were no additional footprints to indicate attackers. Nonetheless, the Mansi theory occasionally resurfaces, fueled more by cultural misunderstanding and folklore than evidence. In truth, it seems the Mansi had nothing to gain and everything to lose from harming the hikers. Yeti attack, from diary joke to myth. Perhaps the most popular theory in pop culture, yet the least scientifically grounded, is the idea that the group was attacked by a Yeti or undiscovered cryptid creature. This idea stems from several curious hints. A joking diary entry refers to a snowman watching us. One of the final photographs taken by the group appears to show a figure in the trees, possibly human-shaped, possibly not. The sheer force of the injuries has been cited as evidence of a strong unknown being. Advocates point to the missing eyes and tongue, broken ribs and skull fractures as signs of animal attack or savage force. However, there are critical issues with this theory. There were no animal tracks nor signs of defensive wounds. If a creature had attacked the tent, it would likely have left claw marks or external trauma. The theory was partly fueled by tabloids and horror films rather than forensic evidence. Still, the idea of a lone, terrifying creature in the snow-cloaked wilderness continues to captivate imaginations, enough to inspire movies, books, and internet lore. Alien encounter theory, the orange orbs. Mystery. Among the most enduring and controversial theories is the idea that the group may have encountered an extraterrestrial force. This theory, while speculative, is built around consistent eyewitness accounts from nearby observers who saw unidentified flying objects or orange lights crossing the sky on the night of February 1st, 1959. Strange burn marks on trees and ground in nearby valleys. Rumors of government agents recovering unidentified debris. The alien theory attempts to explain the precision and surgical nature of Dubinina's mutilation, the irrational fear that might have overtaken the group, the radiation on clothes, the absence of a human or animal perpetrator. No direct evidence of extraterrestrial involvement has ever been recovered, but believers argue that such technology would not leave conventional traces. Skeptics dismiss the idea as sensationalist, citing lack of physical proof and likening the theory to Cold War-era fear-mongering. However, the consistency of UFO sightings in the region at the time is enough to keep this hypothesis in public conversation. Soviet government cover-up. Many researchers and family members of the victims strongly suspect a state-sponsored cover-up. Key elements fueling this theory include the immediate sealing of all investigation materials, the classification of the site and suppression of media coverage, contradictory reports and rapidly changing official narratives, sealed coffins, preventing families from fully inspecting the bodies. Some theorize the group witnessed military activity, such as weapons testing or secret troop movements. Others suggest the government may have caused their deaths, and then staged the site to look like a natural disaster or hiking accident. The KGB's involvement in the early days of the investigation raises further suspicions, as does the fact that some files were destroyed before being declassified. Despite Russia's 2019 report reaffirming the avalanche theory, families insist that the truth was buried, literally and figuratively. The Soviet state's obsession with secrecy and its long history of disinformation makes this theory difficult to dismiss outright. After decades of speculation and mounting pressure from the victims' families and the public, Russian authorities officially reopened the case in 2019. A panel of experts and forensic scientists reviewed satellite data, weather models, and autopsy reports. Their conclusion? A slab avalanche was the most likely cause. They cited fresh snowfall and wind causing unstable snow slabs to form. A delayed avalanche triggered by hikers' footsteps and excavation of a snow trench. Hypothermia and resulting confusion causing the bizarre behavior. Limitations of the report. It did not address radiation, missing eyes, tongue, or internal trauma. It dismissed eyewitness reports of lights in the sky. It did not explain why trained hikers made poor decisions under threat. Many viewed it as a politically motivated attempt to close the case once and for all, without truly addressing the mystery's most perplexing elements. For most, the report raised more questions than it answered. More than 6 decades later, the 9 victims are still remembered, not just for how they died, but for who they were. Young, bright, ambitious adventurers with a shared passion for exploration. A memorial stone now stands near the site, and Dyatlov Pass itself has become a somber destination for trekkers and investigators. Annual remembrance events, online communities, and global documentaries continue to keep their story alive. Names like Igor Dyatlov, Zina Kolmogorova, and Lyudmila Dubinina have transcended history, becoming symbols of enduring mystery, human curiosity, and unanswered truth. So what really happened on that frozen slope in 1959? Was it an avalanche, infrasound, secret weapons, or something beyond our comprehension? The Dyatlov Pass Incident stands as a case where every answer feels incomplete. Every theory solves part of the mystery, but none satisfy all the questions. Why did the group flee with such urgency? What force broke ribs without bruises? How can we explain missing eyes and tongues? What caused radiation on the clothes? Why did the government shroud the truth in silence? Perhaps the ultimate truth lies not in any one theory, but in the complexity of a world where nature, politics, and the unknown intersect. The Dyatlov Pass incident continues to draw attention because it touches something deeply human. Our need to understand the unexplainable, to bring light to places still buried in darkness. As long as the snow falls on Kholat-Syakhl and the wind howls through the Ural Mountains, the mystery lives on, a cold echo of fear, fate, and unanswered questions.